Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Manila. Day 2 of recovery. Recovery has occurred earlier. I'm Ted Rall. That's Manila Chan. She's back in case you missed yesterday's show, in which case you are a very bad person. Do not be a bad person. Don't miss yesterday's show. You are tuned in to the Ted Manila Information Show, TMI for short, where we bring you way too much information and probably way too much other stuff as well. We are here
Personal
to give
TMI too.
Oh, certainly. We're here to give you everything from news to politics to lifestyle, culture, fad diets, trends, what the kids are up to, what the dogs and cats are up to, the taboo, the occult, anything and everything goes, because we think you can never have too much info. If you're looking for a straight-laced, button-down news program, the show might not give you exactly what you're looking for, but you shouldn't be looking for that. You should be looking for this. We offer you things you need to hear about and some stuff that you didn't know you needed to know, but you did need to know, and we'll have a few laughs along the way. We're here live Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern time. Make your appropriate adjustments if you're in a different time zone, and please be sure to like and follow and share the show on your socials. Follow, subscribe. If you become a paid supporter, that's especially appreciated. But if you can't or don't want to, that's okay too. On today's show, we will be talking about where do the Democrats go following their defeat in November. They seem to be kind of still spinning their wheels and not knowing what they're doing. We're going to get into that after the headlines. The Ted Manila Information Show starts right now. Wrapping up their own investigation of the January 6th Capitol attack, House Republicans have concluded that former GOP Representative Liz Cheney ought to be prosecuted for looking into what happened when
That's crazy.
Trump sent his mob of supporters as Congress was certifying the election. Which part's crazy?
That they're actually going to maybe go after Liz Cheney.
Can we just prosecute her for being Liz Cheney?
Yeah, that's true. I would concur with that. Can you just prosecute the Cheneys for being the Cheneys?
I mean, we could write a law for that, just for that express purpose.
Yeah. You just can't be a Cheney.
You're not allowed to be a Cheney in the United States. All right, here we go. The findings issued yesterday show the Republican Party is working to reinforce Trump's desire to punish his enemies. They say perceived enemies here in the article, but I think it's fair to say that Cheney is his enemy, including Cheney and members of the J6 committee that the president-elect says should be in jail. House Administrative Committee Chairman Barry Loudermilk, that's an interesting name, Republican of Georgia, wrote...
I thought he died.
Well, I mean, with a name like that, you might want to die. Until we hold accountable those responsible and reform our institutions...
Oh, no, that's Harvey Milk, sorry.
Well, he did die, yeah. We will not fully regain trust. The panel Republicans' 128-page interim report, God, who can't wait for the final one, arrives as Trump is preparing his return to the White House and working to staff his administration with officials at the highest levels, including FBI Director-designate Kash Patel, who appear like-minded in his efforts at retribution. Trump also says he's going to pardon people who were convicted of roles in the riot at the Capitol. I'm curious if that happens, how quickly it happens, and how thorough those pardons will be. Will they cover everybody or just sort of a la carte that? This revisits long-running Republican arguments that Trump is not to blame for the attack on the Capitol. The Department of Justice has prosecuted 1,500 people, which is absurd, including leaders of the militant Oath Keepers and Proud Boys, and indicted Trump on 4 criminal charges, including conspiracy to overturn the election. Special counsel Jack Smith has abandoned the case against Trump because of the fact that he's going to be president of the United States, and the Justice Department has guidelines that says that sitting presidents can't be charged. I have to still remind, I do think a lot of the cases against Trump were bullshit, but I still think it's very strange that the Justice Department has this memo. I mean, if we're all equal under the law, why can't a sitting president be charged? I mean, there's nothing that says this in the Constitution.
No.
There's no basis in law. I mean, it's just sort of like we've just decided. Can the Justice Department pass a memo and just basically decide to create laws, just sort of de facto laws? You know, we're not going to prosecute anyone whose last name starts with an R. I'd be all for that. But I mean, does that make any sense?
Well, I guess it's not even a policy. It's just kind of like an unspoken house rule.
No, it's a policy.
It's a real policy?
Someone wrote a memo decades ago. And
but it's a memo. I mean, it's a memo. Like, it's not
internal memo. It's like a memo to files.
So here's the thing with the whole Trump thing, like this whole J6 thing, I still contend it's a farce. I've been on that side of it since the day after, right? Like, I don't see it as I don't believe Trump incited a riot. I don't believe he incited an insurrection. I mean, a riot, maybe. An insurrection, no. But I think
he definitely incited. Well, here's the thing. So, I mean, look, he definitely incited. He's like, remember, he tweeted out, like, come to Washington on January 6th. It's going to be wild. All caps, he said.
I mean, he didn't say, let's take to the streets. Let's go tear down the U.S. Capitol.
We're going to fight.
He didn't say any of those things, and people will construe whatever they want. They'll make, they'll make
irresponsible to the extreme.
Sure, fine, and that's fine. But to try to implicate him as some mastermind of trying to overthrow democracy on J6.
No, I mean, the thing is, look, he was smart. It was more like a light putsch is what this was. It was basically like, he kind of thought, like, I'm not going to, he had considerable powers at that time, and he had, as a right winger, he had the support of the police and all that. He could have absolutely conspired with the DC Metro Police and the police in other cities across the country. He could have declared
that's why it wasn't a planned thing. That's how you know it wasn't planned.
It was planned. It just was like a putsch. A putsch is where you sort of say the government's so fragile that maybe if you just sort of like lightly tap it over, like like when Clovis just plays with something, he's like, oh, what's that? Here, let me
tap.
And will it fall over? It's like, well, I mean, is it a real scheme? Like, I'm out to bite and claw the shit out of this? No. I mean, the point is, Trump definitely had plausible deniability, but you and I both know what he had in mind. He would have been over the moon if the rioters had taken over the Capitol, strung up Mike Pence and Nancy Pelosi, and declared him president for life, forever and ever. That's what he wanted, for the country to all be into it, and for the cops and the National Guard to all support it. He would have loved it, but it was like he wasn't willing to take the chance of actually.
We're not going to relitigate that.
Yeah,
we're not going to relitigate that. What we have to talk about today is Liz right there. Is that this would be, I think, a first of its kind, Ted. I've never seen anybody, especially the House, going after one of their own or their previous own to say that they might bring charges against Liz. What would those charges even be? Like, what? I mean, do I think she's an ass? And sure, but I mean, what's the charge?
The Republicans are accusing her of witness tampering. That basically she went on Signal, which is an encrypted app that a lot of us use. I use it. And basically conspired with one of the witnesses on the J6 committee and basically said, hey, what are you going to be doing? What are you going to say? Say this, don't say that. So basically putting her thumb on the scale and conspiring. So witness tampering in a House committee is basically what this is. She's accused of here.
So is this kind of like applicable in the same sense that we would look at the mob trying to shake down a witness and scare down a witness? Like, so this is like a Cheney.
Well, not intimidating a witness, more like telling the witness, hey, here's what I'd like you to say. Here's what I'd like you not to say. Tampering. Yeah. Although effectively it's the same. It's the same thing. Yeah. Legally, it's the same problem.
Could she be held liable in a court of actual law and be sent to jail for this?
Well, in the same sense, yes, in the same way that Bannon was found guilty of offenses against the House
Republican-led House
committee, and then had to go to jail. So they can, basically, their DC Metro Police is put in charge of a warrant, and they could ask for her to be extradited by the authorities in Wyoming or in her deep lair somewhere in
Yeah.
hell where she lives with Dick and her secret undisclosed location. So yeah. So no, she could go to jail.
Well, and you know what, Ted, I think if they can prove that that's what she did, then she deserves it. I don't think,
Sounds like
again,
they have the goods on her.
because nobody should be above the law. I mean, I thought you were going to say like maybe she had her dad go shoot somebody in the face or something, go testify.
Nothing like
but
that.
remember, the whole J6 committee thing, the whole show, quasi trial that was up on the hill, it was it was literally a produced event by an ABC/Disney news producer. Like, that's ABC owns Disney, right? Or Disney owns ABC. And they literally, it was such a highly produced event. It was meant to curate and foment a certain type of feeling, while they thought, the anti-Trumpers and the never-Trumpers and the Democrats thought the wind was in their sails at the time. And they thought, we're going to take this guy down and he's never going to be heard from ever again.
Yep.
And surprise, surprise, a couple years later, here he's back, right? In less than a month,
to say the
he's
least.
back in force. So I think this is all blowing up to bite them in the ass. And I think with Liz Cheney being, I would say, the lead orchestrator in doing this, and this lady looks like an SNL parody of herself. I'm sorry, but like, she's
the thing about Liz. I mean, look, here's the thing. They probably can do this, but in life, how like you're out drinking and you have a dumb idea. You're like, I should tell my boss to go fuck himself. And then you're like, the next morning, you're like, yeah, I'm not going to do that.
Done that.
Yeah. So there's like a lot of things like that. I mean, that are bad ideas. And frankly, that January 6th, the lawfare, a lot of it was a bad idea. They could do it. They did do it. Wasn't smart. Shouldn't have done it. Bad tactics. This is one of those things. It's overreach. It's a mistake. It's like,
does Liz go full Democrat? We can probably talk about that later as our main topic, but that's something. Let's put a pin in that.
She can never go Democrat. Anyway, all right. No,
okay,
she can't.
We'll put a pin in
that. She's too much of a fascist. All right. Anyway, Madison police are still
any difference now?
Well, that's a good point. Madison police are still, this is in Wisconsin, of course, are still investigating the motive behind Monday's school shooting at the Abundant Life Christian School. Life is a little bit less abundant than it was on Sunday. Answering the question why is now the top priority of the police. The cops previously identified the suspect shooter as 15-year-old Natalie Rupnow, who went by the name Samantha as a student. She's a student at the school, or was a student at the school, and they're still investigating the motive. The shooting left 3 people, including Rupnow, dead, 6 others wounded, 2 more are still fighting for their lives. 2 others, fortunately, have been released from the hospital, although maybe they just have like United Healthcare, and they might be really sick, and they might have just been kicked out of the hospital. We'd have to follow up on that. Madison Police Chief Sean Barnes says the motive appears to be a combination of factors, but wouldn't specify what those factors might be. Chief Barnes said there's always signs of a school shooting before it occurs. His investigators are now going through the shooter's social media, hoping to find something. They're also aware of a reported manifesto circulating on social media. Cops have not been able to verify the authenticity or lack thereof. Local investigators from the Fox affiliate there in Wisconsin went to the neighborhood where the cops blew the front door off a home while executing a search warrant. Doesn't anybody just pry open doors anymore? Or like, I don't know, like
you
no
have
one
to
has a
blow it up?
skeleton key? Yeah, I mean, really. Neighbors said that Runpow had lived in that home with her dad for many years. The 15-year-old was the only child of divorced parents, Jeffrey and Melissa Rupnow. Court records show that her parents had been married and divorced twice since 2014.
Very weird.
What? So they kind of pulled
a
Liz Taylor kind of thing with Richard Burton. How they
much less glamorous, Ted. Much less glamorous.
But maybe with the same degree of violence. Anyway, they maintained joint legal custody of Natalie, but in 2022, her dad became the primary parent. Records showed Natalie was seeing a therapist, though the reason was not specified. Well, I haven't seen her a lot up close in the last year, but she was always nice. She was always talkative. And I always thought she was a great little kid, said Art Zogbaum. I love his name. A neighbor. I want to be named Zogbaum. I'm going to change my name to Zogbaum after the show. Shocked the living hell out of me. Well, I mean, yeah, and obviously people don't generally school mass shooters tend to be boys and men, not girls, although
Right.
it's not unheard of. There's the really
But remember the
famous.
Tennessee school shooting one,
Mhm.
the one from last year, that was like a trans boy. I mean, she's biologically a girl
Right,
and trans.
a female to male transgender
Yes.
person. Also, and then don't forget the I don't like Mondays shooting in England, right? Like the very famous Boomtown Rats song is based on that. It's called I hate Mondays, or I don't like Mondays. And
Oh, that was a Garfield theme.
it's Boomtown Rats most famous song, and she was named that because when the police asked her why she shot up the school, she said, "I don't like Mondays." So, well, I mean,
Hey.
you know,
So Ted,
there are other girl shooters, but they're definitely few and far.
There are. It's girls tend to internalize a lot of whatever issues they're having, and you know, they inflict self-harm rather than external harm among their peers. That's usually what boys do, but what we're seeing now more and more, I don't know if that's the same case as the Tennessee, you know, school shooter, but I don't know if there's any. We don't know much yet about this Natalie girl. If there was like any sort of, you know, like religious thing behind this, or if she had any issues with her sexuality or her gender identity or
We
whatever.
just don't
There's
know
not
what's
a whole,
going on. Yeah.
we don't know anything yet about
Also,
this girl, but
interestingly, this is a school that's famously anti-bullying. That in fact is a refuge for a lot of students in the area who have been victims of bullying at other schools,
really?
including public and private schools, and they go there because the school is so good at like nipping that shit in
Wow.
the bud. So that's also adds an interesting
So
angle to it.
here's my thing. Here's my thing is like, we can't know at this point what was going on in that little girl's head, but when you look at this scenario, why are the parents and look at the last 5 school shootings? Why are the parents buying these kids firearms for their 15th birthday? It's like all of them. It's like, happy 15th. Instead of going to driver's ed, here's a firearm. Why?
Well, that's not a bad question, to say the least.
Why
Yeah,
are you gifting guns to children?
well, I mean, you know, look, obviously gun culture is commonplace in the United States. A lot of kids shoot guns. I mean, I did when I was a kid. And, you know, I think it's kind of like, well, you like doing this, and, you know, why shouldn't you have, it's like sort of, it's not very different from giving your kid a car, which a lot of parents do. Well,
Sure.
at least they used to. It's hard to get it. You know, you can't really, I don't know if you could even own a car in a lot of states now when you're 16. I bought one when I was
No.
15 and a half.
No,
When
you
I
have
got my
to, at
learner's
least in
permit.
California, 18 and over. You can't be a legal owner of a vehicle until
And
you're
in
18.
most states now, maybe all, you kind of can't really drive alone as like a
Right.
16-year-old, right? Like you have to drive with an adult who's over 18.
Right.
But you know, I mean, again, that used to be different. No, I mean, it's a good question. I live in Manhattan. You know, I mean, you can now buy a gun legally in Manhattan, but it's
Oh,
like, yeah, ever since the Supreme Court decision.
yeah.
But you know, it's like it's just not gun culture here, so I can't imagine
Right.
being like, "Happy birthday! Here's your
I mean, this is one of
AR-15."
the. I'm very much pro Second Amendment. I'm a lawful owner. I have many firearms myself, all locked away, but I'm well over 18. I think I'm a lot of 18-year-olds actually. But why is there no ban or no law that would ban gun
Ownership.
ownership by minors?
Well, I agree with that. I mean, look, honestly, if you can't drive a car on your own,
Right.
or join the military on your own, or smoke
Right.
cigarettes,
You can't buy cigarettes.
You can't buy cigarettes or vapes. You can't get a tattoo. I mean, obviously you can get a tattoo, but you shouldn't get a tattoo. It's not legal.
Technically,
under the age
legally.
of 18.
Right. Why can you own a firearm?
No, I agree.
Why
with
is
that.
there no because a lot of these school shooters, they're like freshmen in high school.
Yeah.
That's what we're seeing right now. They're children. They're literally not even old enough to drive a car. So I think that's an easy fix right there. I mean, if it saves one school from this kind of massacre, just one school, it's worth it, that law. Once you're over 18, let's discuss it. But right now you're under 18. As pro 2A as I am, like this one's simple. This one is very simple. Take guns out of the hands of children.
And speaking of people who should not be allowed to use or deploy guns, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that Israeli forces will remain in a buffer zone within newly seized Syrian territory until an arrangement with the new government in Damascus is established that ensures Israel's security. Accompanied by Defense Minister Israel Katz, IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi, and other top military officials, Netanyahu toured a strategic mountain peak in Syria on Tuesday. You do know you're not in your own country, right, Bibi? Just north of the Israeli-occupied
Look how beautiful it is, though, Ted.
Yes, indeed. Israel deployed troops to seize control of the area amid the chaos following the collapse of the government of Bashar al-Assad earlier this month. The Golan Heights, which were previously part of Syria's Quneitra
Pause right there.
province.
Pause right there, Ted. You gotta hear Bibi
All right.
bragging on this mountaintop before we go on.
What an asshole.
I mean, it's not his fucking land. It's not. This is part of greater Israel. When is the West going to recognize that Israel now has expansionist goals and it's like an empire, and this is how it starts, and here he is literally on top of the mountaintop talking about it.
אני פה בשיח חרמון עם שר הביטחון, הרמטכ"ל, אלוף פיקוד צפון, ראש השב"כ ומפקדים בכירים. אנחנו פה בחיתוך מצב כדי להחליט על היערכות ישראל במקום החשוב הזה, עד שימצא סידור אחר שמבטיח את ביטחון ישראל. זה מעלה אצלי נוסטלגיה. הייתי פה לפני 53 שנים עם החיילים שלי בסיירת מטכ"ל. המקום לא השתנה, באותו מקום. אבל החשיבות שלו לביטחון ישראל רק קיבלה משנה תוקף בשנים האחרונות, ובמיוחד בשבועות האחרונים, עם האירועים הדרמטיים שמתרחשים כאן מתחתנו בסוריה. אנחנו נקבע את הסידור הטוב ביותר שיבטיח את ביטחוננו.
That has got to be absolutely. Can you imagine if you're Syrian or Arab at all, and you're watching that, and you're like, here's this guy. I mean, he's wearing a flag that has the Star of David on it in like Syrian territory, smirking, smiling, and prancing around like he belongs there. I mean, it's bad enough that
he just conquered territory.
That the Israelis did this, but it's like, what's next? He might as well just take his dick out and start pissing all over the ground while he's at it, right? Why not? I mean, here we are. Like, spray that sucker. Like, woo! Elephant cock, do it. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, that shit is insane. I mean, it's like, oh, gee, it's like, I mean, and he complains about anti-Semitism. He's where anti-Semitism comes from. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, talk about needless provocation. You could definitely argue the pros and cons of seizing that buffer zone. But this kind of messaging that's going to be all over social media in the Muslim world, it's so provocative and so
right.
I mean, if I cared about the state of Israel, I'd be furious. I'd be like, this endangers Israel's security by pissing everyone off.
Like he's literally he just helicoptered to the tops of the Golan Heights and literally just said, I proclaim this part of Israel now.
And it's like, it's good to be back.
And nobody is telling him like, no, bro, that's not how this works. Nobody's telling him no.
Also, it's one thing to do it, but just don't have any visuals. So anyway, Golan Heights, which by the way, when I did visit Israel the last time I was there, they produce some of the most amazing wine I've ever tasted in my life. But unfortunately, it's under Israeli occupation. Anyway, it's previously part of Syria's Quneitra province. The Golan Heights was seized by Israel during the Six-Day War back in 1967, and then annexed illegally in 1981. West Jerusalem's claim to the region is rejected by the international community, except for the United States, which officially recognized Israeli sovereignty over Golan in 2019 under Trump. The UN and several Arab states have condemned
They have
Israel's...
Trump Heights, Ted.
Do they really? Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
no, they do. There was like the lower portion of the valley. There was like a new settlement they were building, and they were naming it something else. And then at the last minute, when Trump
Heights.
moved the capital from Tel Aviv, or the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, they were like, "Oh, we're naming this Trump Heights."
Well, they should make sure to have like a lot of brass trimming. Anyway, Arab states have condemned Israel's latest incursion. The UN says that occupation is occupation regardless of duration. Hard to argue. The fall of Assad has created a power vacuum, with the insurgent group HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, gaining control. HTS leaders have criticized the military presence, but said they're not seeking conflict with the Israelis. Israel is not intervening in what's happening in Syria and has no intention of administering Syria. IDF Chief of Staff Halevi previously said, okay, so you're not intervening in what's happening in Syria, so bombing Syria doesn't count, and destroying the military equipment of the new Syrian government, that doesn't intervene in what's happening in Syria. And also, you're bombing ISIS targets, that's not intervening, and seizing a 50-mile zone by the border, if that's not intervening, I think Mr. Halevi needs to return to his dictionary in English and in Hebrew and look up the meaning of the word intervening. Anyway, he insisted that after the army of Syria collapsed, Israel had to ensure that extreme terror elements won't settle close to our border. Maybe they should have thought of that before they helped overthrow the government of Assad,
Yes.
who was the best thing to keep those terror elements away. In addition to advancing in Golan, the IDF has bombed airfields. Oh yeah, there's that. Anti-aircraft batteries and arms depots across Syria. But we're not intervening in order to prevent those weapons from falling into the hands of HTS and other armed groups, some of which are backed by the Turks. Yeah, they're intervening.
So Ted, what I'm gonna predict here is gonna be a fucking mad dash, a land grab by 5 or 6 different groups or states even in Syria. Syria is about to get balkanized in a way that we haven't seen, I mean, in the Middle East in the last 40 years. It's going to be completely balkanized. I think Turkey's going to try to take a piece. The Kurds are going to try to take a piece.
The Kurds already have a piece.
Right. So this is going to be totally like balkanized, and everything to the east where the oil fields are, that's going to be, I think, the hotbed
that's
for war.
US and ISIS fighting
Right.
it out over there.
That's us being friends with ISIS, hanging on to the oil fields, and then Turkey's going to be like, yo, give me some of that dirty oil. So I think that's going to be...
And then the Iranians via Iraq have an interest in this as well.
Yeah. So this is...
Well,
Syria is about to get balkanized.
is officially becoming a failed state. All right, a year ago, we're running behind here. A year ago, Argentina's anarcho-libertarian president Javier Milei took office with a plan to tackle the country's triple-digit inflation and chronic debt issues. And he said he would chop the government spending budget to pieces. So far, it seems to almost be working. Latin America's
he had a chainsaw, Ted.
Third largest
Right
economy.
there it
That's
is.
true. Yeah, that's right. Has emerged from recession for the first time since Q3 of 2023. GDP has grown 4% since then. Month-on-month inflation has dropped from 25% last December to 2.4% a month ago. The way he did this was he scrapped more than half of the government ministries, cut spending on public salaries, devalued the currency, and put pension growth in a chokehold. The subsequent return to growth seems to be a vindication for Milei, whose state chopping has won him praise from the financial markets and the IMF. Although, getting praise from the IMF is kind of like ISIS giving you a favorable review. I mean, that's not always a good thing. It's also earned glowing admiration from Trump, who would like to do something similar to the U.S. federal government. although he is a protectionist, and that's not going to be the case with Milei. Milei's approach has been painful, however. The percentage of Argentines living in poverty has gone up by 13% up to 53% of the country since he took office. Yeah, so he won't be there very long. They'll overthrow him. Milei's bet is that this is, yeah, there'll be a revolution there. Argentines are, they're spicy people. Milei's bet is that this is merely short-term pain. He could be right. Experts say the economy expanding by 5 points next year after contracting 3 this year. With midterms approaching in 2025, we'll see how the Argentines feel. I predict the austerity is never popular. Austerity is, Milei is, the Argentines are going to turn against him and kick his ass 5 ways.
Look at the translation of this guy's sign. They're turning us into bitches of the United States.
Well, yeah, that's right. That is correct. That's what, when the IMF likes you, you're a bitch of the United States. It's true. All right, and finally,
I would laugh, but I'm going to cough.
Don't cough. The FTC, that's also known as the Federal Trade Commission, has announced a final junk fees rule to stop bait and switch pricing and other tactics used to hide the total real price and bury junk fees in the live event ticketing and short-term lodging industries. By the way, this is something Biden did, and we've got to give credit where it's due. I've always been critical of Biden, but yay, yes. Joe Biden. Yay, you guys,
was good.
Did a good job for this. This is long overdue. These unfair and deceptive pricing practices harm consumers and undercut honest businesses. People deserve to know up front what they're being asked to pay without worrying that they'll later be saddled with the mysterious fees that can't be budgeted for and can't avoid, says FTC chairperson Lena Khan. The FTC's rule will put an end to junk fees around live event tickets, hotels, and vacation rentals, saving Americans billions of dollars and millions of hours in wasted time. I hope they do that with Airbnb. It always annoys me that the Airbnb is listed by price, but then there's like, oh, did we tell you about the $50 a day cleaning fee?
Right.
And so on.
Will it be applicable across the board?
Or and the worst is the resort fee. Like, you can stay in a hotel in Manhattan, like
the internet
Midtown,
fee,
and there's a resort fee. It's like, it's not a resort. It's a Hilton.
It's not a resort.
It's not a resort. A resort has stripy towels, and it has a pool, and it has tumblers with strong alcoholic beverages with umbrellas in it. That's a resort. And it probably should have like sand and like dolphins and like penguins and I don't know, not penguins, like pelicans. I need some kind of pea bird.
Flamingos.
Some
kind of pink bird.
If it doesn't have multiple pools, it's not a resort.
Right.
Anyway,
is it specified only to like actual resorts, or is this applicable to
it says
Airbnbs?
A vacation rental to me implies Airbnb.
Airbnb, I would think.
The junk fees rule will ensure that pricing info is presented in a timely, transparent, and truthful way. Oh, airlines do this too, right? Like Spirit Airline always comes up on top, the cheapest fare when you go on like Expedia. But then there's the baggage fee, which can add up to $100 each way, and basically more than double the airfare. Like, oh, it's $88 to fly to Fort Lauderdale from New York City. But the $100 if you have a bag. So anyway. So all these games have to come to
the concert fees, all of that, like the
ridiculous.
All those whenever you try to go to concerts or like buy a ticket to a show somewhere, all those fees.
I favor execution of anybody who violates these rules painfully. Nibbled to death by cats is how they should die. The junk fees rule will ensure that pricing info is transparent, truthful, and blah 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 blah. Consumers searching for hotels and vacation rentals or seats at a show or sporting event will no longer be surprised by a pile of resort convenience or service fees inflating the price. By requiring upfront disclosure, the rule will make comparison shopping easier. That's what I like, resulting in savings for consumers and leveling the competitive playing field. It will benefit more straightforward, honest hotels that don't do this and who have been getting screwed by their competitors, right? The FTC estimates that the junk fees will save consumers up to 53 million hours a year of wasted time spent searching for the total price of events and lodging. The time savings is supposedly going to be about $11 billion over the next decade. So basically that's the deal. Everything is going to have to be clearly and conspicuously disclosed. You can't misrepresent any fee or change in any offer, display, or ad for live event tickets or short-term lodging. In addition, the rule requires businesses to, I would say, shouldn't just be short-term lodging. There's junk fees in all sorts of shit. For example, rentals. Here in New York City, a landlord will advertise an apartment. Then when you show up to rent it or to look at it, they're like, oh, well, you also have to pay a broker's fee. I'm like, well, I didn't have a broker.
Really?
Oh, yeah, you have to pay a broker's fee. That is 15% of the annual rent, so about 2 months rent. And it's, in New York City, that's a lot of money. 15% of my annual rent would be $9,000. So it's not.
Oh my God!
Not a small amount of money. So there's like all sorts of shit like that they should put an end to for sure. Again,
so this is good.
And
this
Trump
is a good
better
thing.
Not repeal this. I'm going to be really pissed if he does.
Well, here's my question to you, Ted. Is like, so with Lena Khan, she has been actually popular amongst the pro-Trump tribe, like Matt Gaetz and people like that, as well as people that would, sort of be considered progressive, like the AOCs and all of that and that wing. So if there's some overlap there, do you think Lena Khan is going to be able to stay at the FTC?
I don't know. One would like to think. Look, it's one less confirmation hearing that you have to have if you like to keep someone. It always makes you look good as an incoming president if you can keep some people from the previous regime. Shows that you're not like just trying to blow everything up. And obviously it makes the bureaucracy run a little more smoothly. If you don't,
I think she's doing some good. I think Lena Khan is doing some good.
I don't know the
she's
answer
kind of
to
fearless.
That. I hope so. Again, though, what irritates me with all things Biden and Democrats in general is you came up with something good. Did you really have to wait until the last day of finals to turn in your paper at like 11:57 p.m.? You couldn't really you couldn't have done this a year ago? Why?
Right.
It's not like Biden was spending a lot of time giving interviews to the press.
I know.
He wasn't busy.
Like, you could have saved us all of these fees like 3 years ago and you didn't. Like, thanks, dude. Like, now on your way out, it's like, okay, well, hopefully it sticks and when Trump comes in, but I don't know. I think this is a popular move and a populist move. So I think Trump might try to piggyback off of this. So I think this is something that'll stick. And I think there's going to be a chance that Lena Khan keeps her job. And I think it will bode well for Trump if he can keep, somebody from the previous administration such as her. So I don't know. I kind of like this lady. She's kind of a rabble rouser. Kind of like it. Kind of dig it.
All right. So we need Jaws.
All right. That does it for the headlines.
That's it. Our main topic today, running a little bit late, but that's okay. The defeated presidential candidate Kamala Harris, remember her, says it's time for, by the way, I have a cartoon coming out. I should just read you about Kamala. So it's like, it's a guy goes to the police and he says, I can't believe it's come to this. It's so embarrassing. And the cop goes, you're not alone. 20% of stalkers are women. And then the guy goes, it was never a good relationship. It didn't last long. It was just a fling. For fuck's sake, it's over. And the cop's like, yeah, I know. And now she just won't leave you alone. And he's like, yeah, every day, sometimes several times. Can we talk? Send money. I'm broke. It's relentless. Her name? Kamala Harris. And the cop is like, she's after me too. Kamala Harris, I'm still getting fundraising requests from every single day. And one of them is called like, can we talk? And it's like, no, woman, we can't talk. Okay. Like we're done here. We were never together in the first place.
Right.
And I was never that into you. You were never.
We only met once or twice.
Yeah. What the hell? Anyway, Kamala says it's time for Democrats to roll up their sleeves and start the resistance to Donald Trump. But the party appears to be in disarray, totally dispirited, and unable to find a way forward. How should Democrats prepare for the 2026 midterms and an open race for 2028? More than 10 million progressive voters stayed home in the last election, which allowed Trump to win. Can the party do something to bring them back? Is there a way to reconcile symbolic political correctness and identity politics on the left with the party's pro-censorship and militarily aggressive foreign policy, which appears to be more on the right? And so That is our
Short answer,
question.
no.
All right, topic over. Nice show. See you tomorrow.
Short answer is no. Ted, I think over. So since they allowed the Democrats and then whatever, if we want to consider them all the left writ large, whatever, Bernie, go back to 2008, right? When the DNC, I believe, knowingly and in concert chose to overthrow democracy as we knew it by sandbagging Bernie Sanders back then for Hillary Clinton. They gave away the party, they gave away their positions, they gave away their platforms, they gave away all of their ethics in 2008 for Hillary Clinton. That's what it was. Because she wouldn't have been there if they didn't sandbag Bernie Sanders.
True.
They gave away the whole farm in 2008 and they sold their souls. And I don't think they have figured out any way to come back from that because
2008 was Obama.
Sorry, to
16.
16. No, where are
Hillary
we in
was
Bernie?
16.
God,
16.
Hillary was 16. Oh, sorry, yes.
And 20.
16. Yes, so the two times that they screwed over Bernie Sanders. So I went too far back. Yes. But since that time is when they gave away their soul. They sold their soul. They no longer represent.
Did they have a soul? Really?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think
now they've been like this. I hate to say this, Manila. Like the thing. Here's what. Look, honestly, I wrote this book. This is it right here. Political Suicide: The Fight for the Soul of the Democratic Party. And this book, which I came out a few years ago, basically details the long history that goes back to 1976 of the Democratic Party sandbagging progressives. Basically, after the 1972 defeat of McGovern by Nixon, which was brutal, there was a post, basically a power struggle within the Democratic Party between the right-wing faction led by figures that are now forgotten, like Scoop Jackson, and versus the traditional sort of Hubert Humphrey liberal wing of the Democratic Party that had controlled the party pretty much throughout since Adlai Stevenson in 1952. The right-wingers won. They took over the party. Jimmy Carter was kind of a reflection of that. He was the beginning of that. And then, so you see the first big battle. Ted Kennedy leads the insurgency of the progressive left, the traditional liberals, against the more conservative Jimmy Carter in the 1980 primaries. I was there. I was 17
That's
years
fair.
old at the Democratic National Convention in New York City in 1980, and the Democrats changed the rules because basically at that time delegates were not bound. They could vote however they wanted.
wow.
By the time July 1980 rolled around, Ted Kennedy absolutely would have won the nomination. So the Democrats so the Carter people manipulated the rules and decided to bind the delegates. And the reason they weren't bound was because if things changed between the primaries and the convention, it would give the convention the flexibility to change their mind. Well, things had changed. They were in the middle of this long Iran hostage crisis, and inflation was really, really bad. So Carter was unpopular, but the party decided to shove him down our throats. Just fuck Ted Kennedy. And we've seen this same sort of thing come up over and over. We had in 1988 an insurgent candidacy of Jesse Jackson sandbagged by the progressive.
Right.
People forget he carried a lot of states in the primaries. He was a very important force in that. We saw it again in 2004 with Howard Dean, who was sandbagged. In 2008,
From the Yeehaw.
we saw it again against John Edwards, who ran on the Two Americas. Don't forget, there were three candidates, right? Hillary, Obama, John Edwards. John Edwards was the leftist. He was the progressive in the 2008 primary.
But with the $400 haircuts, who was stooping somebody on the side as his wife was dying of cancer. That
his
was
wife
never gonna
told
fly.
him to. His wife set it up.
Well, I don't know.
No, it's true. His wife's like, honey, I know you have needs, and I can't do it for you anymore.
It's very sad.
I can't bone, so hey,
Very
go with
sad.
the camera lady. She's cute. She's into you. She set it all up. It was like a Yoko Ono type situation. You can hey,
very
you
sad.
got need. It's not
Yeah,
sad. It's actually
but at the
like
time,
mature.
at the time, for PR purposes, that was not going to bode well if you're running for president.
Right, and then they
That's
have to all
not gonna
pretend
work.
like, I mean, so this is kind of like what happened like with remember New Jersey Governor Jim McGreevey, who was, let's just say, either gay or bi, depending, and he was married, and it turned out he was having what they called Saturday night specials. They were having threesomes with a New Jersey state trooper, and I don't know like exactly what the details were, whether he was
Right.
watching his wife, with the trooper, or whether they were really mixing
That's
it
called
up like
cucking.
total three-way. I don't know what's going on there, but
Right.
the
But
point
that,
is
I mean, that was back
it was
then.
consensual.
We weren't ready for that. We
But it
weren't
was
ready for that
consensual.
back then.
Well, we still
Society-
haven't had like like how Magic Johnson made it okay to have AIDS, and you were like not a bad person once Magic Johnson admitted that he had it, even though he lied and said, I never have been with a dude like ever. It's like, okay, we don't believe you at all. But okay, the point is that we haven't had a moment like that for like sluts. I mean, there needs to be a Magic Johnson moment where someone's like, okay, so yeah, I had a threesome with a state trooper, whatever.
Where are we going with this? This is like here's the thing. This is like the Democratic Party, right? So this is okay. So they're the ones that, okay, to your point, you're right that it has been a slow creep over the past 40 years of how the party got lost in their position and what's important to them, whether it's sex, gender identity, bigger government for this,
corporate
that, or the other
donations
thing.
is what's important
Right.
to them, really.
Things have really changed over the past 40 years. It's been a slow creep, but I would say it's never been so naked as it had during the Bernie Sanders era when he was fighting for the top. It was absolutely fucking
here's
naked.
the difference. I mean, Howard Dean was popular, no question. Jesse Jackson was popular, but you didn't not know until Bernie Sanders. You didn't have a guy who could fill arenas all over the country.
Right.
You didn't have someone who was, basically a dog who caught a car and was couldn't fucking believe it that like he was
Hillary
doing as well
couldn't
as he was.
Hillary couldn't fill in 2016. Hillary couldn't fill
her own car.
High school gym. She couldn't fill a high school gym.
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders filled RFK Stadium.
Right.
Here in DC. I was there for it. Like I watched it happen.
So that scared the shit out of the DNC establishment.
I watched, right, the establishment gave it away. And what did they give it away for, Ted? For 10 years, less than 10 years later, for this lady? This lady to now be the face of the party?
They don't think they did anything wrong. They look at it like this was a win for them. They don't care about beating Republicans. They care about beating progressives. This is about control, right? This is like basically like they have their little fort. It's useful to think of it like as a fortress on top of a hill.
Pretty good.
And like, that fortress could control, like expand its lands and take over neighboring countries. But they've given up on that. They just
want to control their little fiefdom.
Right. And just keep the money coming in. It's all about the grift. That's what the DNC is all about. In fact, they raise more money under like when they lose, like, and they line their pockets more. They, for the next 4 years, they're going to be like, help us fight Donald Trump. I know, because my dead mom
that's true.
mail still comes to me all the time. And I get all this Democrat bullshit mail that says like, contribute, help us fight the Trump threat and all this stuff. And it's like, I'm not going to fight the Trump threat. You're just going to cash the checks, right? But that's what they're doing. So they don't. So here's the thing. Of course, in the long run, they have to win sometimes, or people will stop donating, right? It's like a sports team. If they always lose, the bleachers are empty, right? People don't go. So,
but what is the platform?
Well, that's the question.
What
right?
do they stand for?
What are
other than
Democrats?
Other than saying fuck Trump? What do they stand for?
Well, and so
and then they only have 4 years of this, Ted, because 4 years from now, Trump is gone.
All right. Well, so let's.
What then? What's the platform?
The Democratic Party is suffering from a bunch of internal contradictions. Some of them are ideological, and some of them organizational, right? So in no particular order. Okay, you have an ideological conflict between a right-wing foreign policy, and
Yep.
I would say it's a three-way conflict. A right-wing foreign policy, which is let's invade and do proxy wars around the
Yep.
world and be big assholes around the world, kind of like
Yep.
Bush on steroids, neocons. Also, we're going to have woke, sort of empty identitarian identity politics crap, but we're not going to embrace a class analysis that's about raising people's wages and improving their benefits. We're going to abandon the working class. So none of that really
Where's
makes
the talk
sense.
that the fight for 15? Where's the talk for Medicare for
Fight
all?
for 15.
Where's
Fight for 15 started 14 years ago. We need to fight for 30 now. Okay.
right?
Fight for 15 is over. Like,
That's
fight
what I'm
for-
saying. Like,
yeah, you missed
like,
it.
what-
I mean, the minimum wage has been $7.25 federally since 2009. Okay.
where
I mean, my
where
kid
has
was
all
5
that
years old when that. He's in college now. He's going to graduate next year.
The
That's how long this
conversation.
went.
That conversation is completely gone from the party. That's what I'm saying is in the past just 10 years, it's been so nakedly stripped away that the party has no platform. There is no platform, to the point that the
No.
lady that they just ran for president, this lady right here,
Had nothing
is
to say.
now reduced to giving speeches at a trade school. This is what we're looking
Well,
at. Do
I'm
you want me
sure
to play?
she can. I'm sure she'll get some better gigs than that on MSNBC.
You want me to play?
Looking at you.
Play a little bit? You want me to? It's just kind of
Well,
funny.
I do. I just want to make another point about the contradictions in the party. And then I want to hear this beautiful speech that she gave. But I mean, there's also a major organizational and structural problem within the Democratic Party that goes back to that 1976 split, which is most of the voters in the Democratic Party, anywhere between 54 and 70%. I know these numbers because I looked them up because of the new book I'm working on. So that's depending on what polls you look at, are self-identified progressives to the left of the Democratic Party. But the party's controlled by the conservative faction, the DNC. So, which came out of that third way, sort of moderate Clinton light, Democrat light kind of thing. That's a major contradiction, right? I mean, the party, basically, it's an apartheid party. It's run by the minority of its own party that has to basically control its majority of voters, which is why so many of them didn't turn out. I mean, Democratic Party has a lot of major fucking problems. Not to say that the Republicans don't also, but right now, it's the Democrats who are being highlighted. Anyway, let's watch that speech.
It's very funny that, I mean, a month and a half ago, she was going to be the next president of the United States of America. And 5 weeks later, she's talking at a trade school graduation.
Love seeing all of our young leaders. You know, when I look out at all of you, I know and I feel so strongly the future of our country is bright. It is bright because of all of you. And I want to thank Lauren for her kind words and her commitment to your community, Lauren, and for the example you are setting. It is so good to see all of you. So, well, you know what? So let me start with just what has happened actually
Is she
yesterday
drunk?
before I begin my other
Well, that's what
comments
people
about
always
the
think.
horrific shooting yesterday in Madison, Wisconsin. Of course, it's another school shooting.
No kidding.
Another
Jeez.
community being torn about and torn apart by gun violence. And of course, our nation mourns for those who were killed, and we pray for the recovery of those who were injured and for the entire community. But look, as we hold our loved ones close this holiday season, we as a nation must renew our commitment to end the horror of gun violence, both mass shootings and everyday gun violence that touches so many communities
There's everyday
in
shootings.
our nation.
These are normal.
We must end it, and we must be committed to have the courage to know that solutions are in hand, but we need
But they're not.
elected leaders to have the courage to step up and do the right thing.
Platitude, platitude, platitude. Yay, platitude.
We're all reminded, if anybody is still wondering why
So
she
with that,
lost,
I will return to the
What's that, Tad?
keep going. If anyone's
Reason
wondering
we
why
are
she
here
lost, holy shit.
Here's a reminder.
And I first want to thank all of the incredible leaders who are with us, including Governor Moore, my dear friend. You're
Okay.
Westmore, the new governor of Maryland, is somebody that I think is somebody you should keep your eye on for the party, because he's kind of that, he's got that Barack Obama riz to him. So, you know, he's a young, tall, good-looking, fit black dude. Like he hangs out, watches football. Like he's like a dude, right? Because that's something I think, Ted, that we saw within the party has been lacking. Is like, remember we were talking about how Kamala Harris's campaign had effeminized men, had really kind of stripped away men's
they were trying.
balls.
We just said like, bye.
Right.
Yeah.
And Wes Moore is not that, the new governor of Maryland. He's like a dude, right? Like he looks like he could be like an NFL linebacker himself, right? And he's like a dude. So it's almost like he's bringing masculinity back to the male side of the Democratic Party, and that it's okay to be a dude. And I think that's one of the deficits that the Democrats were lacking, is that they've been saying for the past 15 years, you know, the future is female. The future is female. Well, you know what happened? This last election, Donald Trump showed that it was the men that won the election, and that the women that supported those men helped win the election for him. Women wanted men. What about that? Women wanted men. And there are numbers to prove that. I got a video for that too. I got one right here. Like the party preferences of young people, masculine. It went masculine. And this came out right before the actual elections. And I thought it was like worth watching just like a minute or two of it, if you don't mind.
Yeah, let's do it.
Look.
58% of young people lean Democratic. 2012, 53%. And in the last two major election years, that percentage held steady at 55%. But in 2023, that number dipped below 50% for the first time since 2005. And you'll notice right here, they started to lean more Republican. And that's partly because of one specific group, young men. Young men have increased their support of the Republican Party from 35% to 48%, a 13 percentage point increase in just 7 years. And this is a new trend. While 2020 exit polls show that young men backed Biden by 15 percentage points, a February 2024 Wall Street Journal poll found they favored Trump by 14 percentage points. And this loss of young male voters is a major issue for the Democratic Party going into November. The question now, can Kamala Harris bring some back? Here's what's driving young
Well, we know that.
and what it could mean for the presidential election to come.
America great again. When we ask young voters, what issue is most important to you when you go to cast a vote? Among young men, it's the economy. Among young women, it's abortion.
17% of men say the economy is the most important issue, followed by democracy and immigration. Whereas for young women, the top issue is abortion, by a lot.
I mean, first, can we just address this crazy disparity, Ted? I mean, like, why does it?
I know the answer.
I don't
to
know
that.
I mean, are they only asking Democratic women? I guess, like,
No, they're asking young voters, according to this.
Just young in general.
I guess they're
like,
probably talking 18 to 30 usually.
18. Oh, it says 18 to 29.
Oh, okay, all right.
Very young, very young.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, when you're that young and 20, like, young women care that much about being able to abort babies.
Yeah, of course
they
do. I mean,
they don't care that much about their economy.
If you're 20, you got to be concerned about that hole in the condom. I mean, you do. And like, and look, women have fewer reasons to care about the economy at that age than men do, for the simple reason that women make more money than men do. Women have higher
graduating college.
Women have higher educational attainment. They have better jobs, and they're, you know, I mean, men have fallen behind, especially young men have fallen very far behind. So yeah, I mean, men are broke. Men are having a harder time paying the bills especially in their 20s, but across the board, but especially young ones. So it makes perfect sense. It's self-interest in both cases. Now, I look, I don't think that.
Well, how does that apply to the party then?
What?
how does that apply to the parties then? I mean, if the Democrats have been focusing for the last 15 years, that's a whole generation of voters, Ted.
Yeah.
They've been saying the future
Look, you
is
can do
female.
both. You can be in favor of higher wages as well, and better better rights for unions and workers, and support abortion rights. You can do both. I mean, the Democratic Party used to do both. It's certainly possible. I think the problem. I mean, obviously, there's the optics. Donald Trump, dude, Kamala Harris, lady. But I mean, and obviously sexism and misogyny were a contributing factor to Trump's victory. However, and they're self-hating women, right? I mean, I personally know some very strong women who said they would never vote for a woman for president because the president should be a man. However, and I'm like, but you could be president. Like what? I don't understand. But that's true. But I think that the real issue here is the way that the campaign was run. I mean, when you say the future is female, that's exclusionary. That's telling men, fuck you.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
It's like when you tell women, like Obama, when he was lecturing, he's a dude, but he's like, listen, I know you don't want to vote for a woman. Just get in line. Like, you owe women. Like, women have been held behind. Time for this is your time to just shut the fuck up and vote for women. And guys are like, eat shit. I'm not doing that. It's like,
right.
What's in it for me? Like, just shut up and eat crow is not that's not a campaign, right? I didn't notice, conversely, I didn't notice Donald Trump saying, the future is male, fuck ladies. It's like, he didn't do that, right? He's just campaigned. And so having a divisive, trying to slice and dice the electorate the way that Harris did, for example, like, oh, we have a special student loan forgiveness program just for Latino people. We have another business, like cannabis business thing for the blacks. And we have another thing for the Armenian, half Armenian, Protestant Catholics. What? It's just
the transracial male to female Azerbaijani population in California.
Just campaign. Just campaign to be the president of all the people. And that's gonna get you the most votes. I mean, that's what turned off men. Men were literally have been told by the Democratic Party in the last couple of cycles, fuck off, we don't need you, we don't care about you.
Look at the labor participation rate right there. The orange are women from the 1970s up until now. And you see the people with high school diploma in the green. I mean, we're converging where women, as you pointed out, are getting more degrees, better jobs. So I guess I want to point out, this is a slightly different segment, not even slightly. 25 to 34 is not the same thing as 18 to 29. No.
You're in a different place in life at 33 than you are when you're 28. And
totally. And I think this is where the problem is going to lie with the Democrats, whereas the Republicans, if we look at how the Republican messaging seems to have struck a chord with young men, and as well as young women who support the return of masculinity. That's they really haven't, the Democrats really haven't gotten their arms around. And
don't forget also, they did kind of have a goofy feminine running mate in Tim Walz.
Yeah, that was really weird. Tampon Tim, right?
Well, that's not his fault that he was called that, but
but he put tampons in boys' bathrooms.
That's true. Yeah. Which, by the way, in my day, we would have come up with all sorts of great pranks
what
to
a
commit
waste.
with them. We would have gotten them wet and thrown them on the ceiling to see if they would stick. We would have thrown them at each other in class. I mean, it would have been so much fun. I mean, I'm kind of sad that I missed out on that.
That is so true. That is absolutely what would have happened in a normal boys situation bathroom in the 70s and 80s. Oh my God, some food coloring, some Jello.
Oh my God.
But see, things like that are outlawed, and I feel like the Democrats, a lot of it, they they killed the fun, Ted. They literally, like, the Democratic Party killed the fun. They spoiled everything. Jokes are not okay. Everything is it's all overly PC. They
Yep.
made being a Democrat not fun anymore. Whereas the Republicans are over here having a hoot, like talking shit on, making jokes about Puerto Rico and trash. I mean, you have to understand the context, obviously. You got to, like, everyone's joking about everything, talking, just trolling on Twitter. So it's like one party became the party of like, oh, you mind your P's and Q's. Oh, you better dot your I's. Oh, you're not doing that right. Oh, you're shame on you. Wrong pronouns. Like, that's one party. And then the other party became this big part, that literally a party where they're like, hey, come over here. If you want to be a dude, let it hang. You want to be a chick, whatever, like, come here. You're all welcome. It suddenly changed in 2024, and the young people saw it. And that's why I think it's going to be a many years reckoning before the Democratic Party starts appealing again to the young, cool, hip people. Because if you had people like Taylor Swift, you had all of these big celebrities and football players and whatever that could not swing the youth vote, and the TikTokers and whatever, they've got many years of reckoning ahead, and they still haven't accepted their own fault in,
Now, the thing
how
is,
they destroyed the party.
So the question, let's flip this over though, right? I mean, we know, I agree with everything you just said, but Republicans can blow this too. I mean,
sure.
All you have to do is look at a Republican National Convention to be like, there sure be a lot of old white folks here, right? It's like they can spend the next 4 years doing a lot of shit that will turn off, cool people, including those ladies who are into abortion rights, which they've already done. The Republicans got rid of abortion rights, and they're trying to spin it like, oh, we just did what everyone wanted, which was to send it back to the states. No, people who were pro-choice did not want it to go back to the states. Okay, so so there's that issue, and Trump intelligently, personally, knows that that's a dangerous issue for him. But I mean, can Republicans, Donald Trump is now going to be the oldest president we've ever had. Can he and his brigand of old people, can they keep young people in the fold for doing shit for them, doing stuff that's going to put money in their pockets, maybe forgive the student loan, something that they're all against? I mean, if he comes in there and does full spectrum Doge austerity, Javier Milei style, tries to Argentine this shit here, the country's going to collapse, and it's going to fall hardest on young people. They're going to lose their jobs first. There's going to be a recession. Republicans have more recessions than Democrats do. This can be, Republican policies can fuck things up. I mean, Ronald Reagan fucked up the economy not once but twice, right? He actually 3 times if you count all the recessions. It's certainly George H.W. Bush. The economy was a piece of shit the entire time that he was president. It's like George W. Bush. It was pretty lame most of his presidency. I mean, young people didn't appreciate that. When I graduated from college in 1991 under George H.W. Bush, the school canceled its jobs fair because not a single employer was interested in trying to recruit any graduate of Columbia University that year because the economy was so shitty. So I'm just saying, Republican economics, they went pretty well for Trump the first time, but it looks like they have different things in mind this time. If like Musk and Vivek have their way.
I think what we're going to see first and foremost at the forefront of this, Ted, I know we got to wrap it up. I think the first thing that has to go, whether it's by force from the Republican side or the Democrats have finally just realized it's a losing message, is like this woke politics has to go. But like this BLM stuff, this woke stuff,
has been no more for years. I mean,
but like
BLM went away 3 years ago.
I've been seeing on Republican Twitter how the Daniel Penny case marks the final nail in the coffin for BLM, that it's over, and all of this stuff. But
like,
the
hey,
thing is,
we were talking earlier about like I was talking earlier to Jamal Thomas, our former colleague and our friend, about the CEO shooting. Trump came out and said that it was sick and wrong to cheer that, and that no one should be happy about what happened to Brian Thompson. But I mean, I'm sorry, Trump seems out of touch when he says that.
Well, I just personally have my personal ethics of you just don't dance on people's graves, and I don't think you should ever cheerlead somebody being murdered.
Dance.
I don't. I just
well,
don't.
When they themselves are
terrible.
A horrible butcher and murderer of the masses. Bye.
Like, I just don't. I just make it a personal policy, especially this guy's like a CEO. He's not Joe Biden. He's not Barack Obama, right? Like, this guy's some CEO.
But he killed. But his policies. He presided over policies that caused misery and death to many thousands of innocent Americans.
Mostly a lot of figurehead. I just don't. It's just something, my own personal thing. I just don't ever like dance on anybody's graves and celebrate.
He's out of touch. That's not the point, though. I mean,
but
how you feel and how I feel is not important. The point is the American people are very pro. They're universally on Team Luigi, not on Team Brian.
I know.
And so the
I'm
point
not necessarily on Team Brian. I just don't think he should have been murdered. I condemn violence in general.
Well, I'm sorry, but what United Healthcare does is a form of brutal violence. But
we can argue that for sure. But I disagree.
But Trump, that's a way to lose young people. Young people are on Team Luigi.
I know.
And
I know.
He's like saying, well, I'm on Team Brian.
But I think the first thing that needs to go is this whole woke shit. They've tried this woke thing for the past 15 years. There's no humor. There is no joy in the Democratic Party. That's the first thing that needs to go.
But what are they going to replace it with? Because that's all they've got right now.
Real platforms.
Platform.
They
don't want a class analysis because that's challenging to the capitalist narrative, which they're like very strong defenders of.
Right. Well, because right now they're pigs in shit right now. They're getting so much money being donated to them.
Right. Because as Bernie Sanders pointed out,
but that's going to run out.
In the 1990s under the Clintons, they started raising fundraising from corporations.
4 years from now, that guy's gone. This guy's gone. He's not at the helm anymore.
True.
What do the Democrats do 4 years from now? You're not going to be a pig wallowing in shit for that much longer, because Trump is going to be out of power in about 3.5 years. So,
well, they haven't.
What's their platform?
I don't think they have anything close to. Look, the thing is, they can't even start building a platform because they can't agree what went wrong. They can't even agree that something went wrong. They still say that Kamala ran a good campaign. It's like, well, she ran a good campaign. Why'd she lose?
But do you think they believe that? Or do you think this
some of them do?
Maybe some, but I think
in the leadership cast, I mean, look, this is a party where someone like James Carville passes for an outsider, and he's a centrist Democrat. He's a Clinton Democrat, right?
Of course.
So in that party leadership, there's no progressives at the table. AOC's not a progressive, not a real one, and she's not at the table anyway.
No,
not really.
No,
she's just a grifter.
She's sold out. She's a grifter now, right? Yeah, absolutely. So there is nobody on that side.
The left is completely outside. So they don't know what they're doing. I think they have to figure out. It's that old question: who are we? What do we want? How do we get there? Here's where we are. Here's where we want to go. How do we get from point A to point B? And they don't know. And I mean, that's okay. They don't need to know right now, but they're going to need to figure it out sooner rather than later.
Last thing I'll say, Ted, is if the Democrats don't have this figured out halfway through Trump's term, so in the next 2 years.
Oh, they need to figure it out next year because the midterms are coming.
For sure. That's what I'm saying. So if it's not sorted out by then, in the next 2 years, you're going to see a hole blasted wide open for third and fourth and fifth parties. And I think that's perfect.
Well,
time.
I've been saying
we're
for
ready
a while,
for it.
I published a piece in the Journal maybe about 7 years ago where I predicted that basically really truly we have four parties in this country, right? And the Democrats, I thought the Republicans were going to split up first. Looks like the Democrats will split first. and we'll end up with like a progressive party, like sort of, maybe it'll be called the New Progressive Party or something, like sort of like Teddy Roosevelt in 1912. And then there'll be the corporatist Democratic Party, the rump Democratic Party. Republican Party is going to split too. There's the Country Club Republicans, they're still there, the neocons, the Liz Cheney types.
And then there's the MAGAs.
And then there's the MAGAs. And there's always, that split goes back a long way. You know, it goes back, basically MAGA is basically the Pat Buchanan people. You know, it's the more America firsters and versus the corporatists, the globalists, and all those people. So there's two Republican parties also, and that's probably where the country should be.
The new realignment is here, Ted. It's been a long time coming, and I'm personally happy to see the death of whatever this Democratic Party is. I'm happy to see this rebrand of whatever the right is now. I'm happy to see this complete realignment, and then for us to figure out I'm tired of the duopoly. The duopoly hasn't worked. Neoliberalism has not worked over the past 40 years. And the only way for us to get rid of that is to kill the duopoly and for us to have 4, 5, 6, 7 different parties and for people to kind of, figure it out along the way.
Couldn't agree more. Let's wrap.
I think that's it. We're done. I think the Democrats are done. They're done.
And so is this episode
Kamala Harris,
of the TMI show.
This lady is not the future of the party, Ted.
Oh, no, that part's for sure. Thank you, everybody, for joining us and for listening to our conversation. Hope you had half as much fun as we did. Thanks to PutinBot Gaming for your support and for moderating the chat and of course, for filling in for Manila over the last week and a half. Please go check out PutinBot Gaming, the gaming channel. Please, 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 please subscribe. Our subscriptions have gotten a little bit slow on the Rumble. They're doing well on the YouTube. But if you're missing one on either channel, please go and do that for us. Really helps us. Please subscribe as a paid subscriber, $5 a month on Rumble, so we can keep doing this show for you. If you like what you see and hear and find value in it, please help us share it on X and Blue Sky and Facebook and Insta and everywhere else. We are fully at Truth Social and LinkedIn. We're fully independent. We rely on you. So please do that. Click the button right below the Rumble feed. Subscribe to the TMI show. We will be back tomorrow at 10 o'clock Eastern time. Also, you can stream us any other time. So we're always available. And as always, help support independent news and content creators. Thanks, everyone. Bye, Manila. So much fun.
Thanks, guys, for bearing through my coughing day by day. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Adios, amigos.
Bye.
Thank you.